Hello, everyone, and welcome. You are probably working so hard getting ready for Pesach. I hope your kitchen looks amazing. Don't you love how it goes in waves? Like you clean it, then it gets messy, then you clean it, then it gets messy, then you clean it, then it gets messy. And that is how it goes. So wherever you are, go you. You're awesome. And Pesach is around the corner, and we're so excited. In this class, we're going to be talking about how to prepare for the Seder. This is a very personal preparation. It's you preparing your heart so that when you sit at that Seder, all of you is present. Now, the interesting thing is that about 99% of the work that we do is physical. We're getting chicken soup up, we're getting our table set, we're getting the Haggada's out, we're getting the kitchen clean, and it's all physical. And this is as it should be. Every single bit of physical work is helping us to clean out all parts of us. It's like an embodiment of cleanup. However, there is room to take 1% of thoughtfulness and introspection while we are doing all these incredible physical tasks. And that 1% changes the rest of the 99%. And our goal of this class is that you should be sitting at the Seder feeling present, calm, comfortable, happy, and awake to whatever it is that Hashem has in store for you on that incredible night. So if you're ready to dive in with me, you have a couple of choices. The first is you can listen to this with a pen and paper. I love to get things down on paper. Just writing is writing. You can't beat it. But you might not have time. You might be moving around while you're listening to this. In that case, I just invite you to allow your mind to do some free thinking. Don't listen to this when you're going to be interrupted 100 times. I mean, maybe you can't help it. But ideally, you're giving yourself some space. This is not a long class, but it's a thoughtful class. So I just want you to have that thoughtful time. Okay, are you ready? Let's head in. So we're going to start with Kaddish. You are going to be at the Seder table. You've worked so hard. We pour the Kiddush, and there's this moment, sometimes it's just a fraction of a moment of quiet right before Kiddush starts. And in that moment, you can drink in the awareness that to be Mikadesh is to be sanctified, set aside for a sacred purpose. And let's give it some thought. This year, it's really easy to think about the fact that we are sanctified. The Jewish people is sanctified. We are part of the Am HaNivchar. We are elevated. We are united. We are sanctified. And it's amazing because to have a Jewish identity perhaps used to be something that was just a part of us, very, very natural, easy. Now it's with all the anti-Semitism, it has risen to the surface. We have a Jewish identity. We are part of the Jewish people. We are part of Am Yisrael. So take that to heart for just one moment. As you're walking around your kitchen, just think about that your soul was chosen for a specific task, and it was chosen to be part of the Jewish family. That's amazing. Okay. And we don't always realize when we are part of the Jewish people what that means. So you just want to drink in that awareness and feel good about it. Feel that you are so special. Okay. And then I want to invite you to get even more personal. And that is to ask Hashem, or to ask yourself, what am I sanctified for? So we know we have a global mission as the Jewish people, and yet there is another mission, and this is the mission that each and every one of us has. So we question, what am I sanctified for? What am I set aside for that only I can do in my life? And give that some thought. You are not dispensable. There are things that only you can do. And as you do this writing or this thinking, what may come to you first is some roles such as mother or wife or sister. These are spaces that only you can inhabit. You are that woman. And beyond that, there are other ways that you're sanctified. Smiles that only you can give, types of kindnesses that are unique to you, ways that you pray that are unique to you, missions that you have that only you know about. They may be subtle. Hashem, what am I sanctified for? And when you make that Kiddush, you can stand in the double sanctity, the sanctity of being part of the Jewish people and the sanctity of being chosen to be who you are with your specific name and task in the way that you move around the world. And now, if you want to take it to one step deeper, the next thing that you can think about is Yetzias Mitzrayim, an exodus from Egypt. So we were put into Egypt because God wanted us to have a specific experience of suffering. In that suffering, we learned compassion. We learned to care for one another, to look out for the ones who are suffering. We learned what it means to be reliant on Hashem, to be reliant on God, and to be good to one another. We learned so much unity in Egypt. And then we were taken out because God did not ever intend for us to suffer. The suffering was only how he formed our character. Eventually, we would come out and we would get the Torah. So the same is in our life. We have all been through an Egypt of sorts, many times. So think for a moment when we're talking about Kiddush and Yetzias Mitzrayim, which is what we talk about in Kiddush. What is the Egypt that Hashem took you out of? And why did he put you there in the first place? What has formed within your character? And what has been your freedom? What is the purpose for what you went through? For you are sanctified, exalted, and anointed for this exact reason. It wasn't by accident, and it wasn't to hurt you. It was because you are so very special that your journey was planned specifically so that you would go through in Egypt and come out on the other side with a type of wisdom and character that you just can't get at the supermarket. Okay, all of this is in Kiddush. Now, I don't know about you, but at our Seder table, there are so many preliminaries. We thank everyone for helping. We welcome the guests. We got to figure out where the matzah and wine go. We got to figure out where people sit. Although my husband makes an amazing seating chart for both Sedarim, and then we put little place cards in front of people's seats. I really recommend this. It just saves like an hour of time and so many fights. You just make those seating arrangements ahead of time. Do your best to make everyone happy. If they're not happy on one night, they can get happy on the other night. So that, I mean, this whole class is worth it just for that tip. But anyway, there's a lot of preliminaries. And you, my friend, have the choice. Where do you want to be in that moment? Do you want to be in the chaos, or do you want to be in the presence? Or do you want to be present to the chaos and still be okay with it? Right? So you're going to have these marvelous thoughts to think about as you're getting this Seder together, that you are a Jewish family. And you are each, not just you, but every single person around the table, you are each chosen for a specific task. You are special as a collective, and you are special uniquely, each and every one of you. It's just amazing. And you can just revel in that while everything is happening. Okay, let's continue on. This is really Pesach prep. This is Urchatz. Urchatz means washing your hands, and it's what we do after Kiddush. And the point of Urchatz is not to do a ritual washing where we make a bracha. We don't make a blessing after this. This kind of washing is like a preliminary cleansing. It's something that we do as a custom before we eat the wet vegetable. Okay, so what can Urchatz mean for us? It can mean that we have to wash away and do a preliminary cleansing of our hearts. And one of the things that I like to think about is how we carry around a storehouse of expectations. When we get ready for the Seder, our mind and body are already flipping through the Rolodex of all the past Sedarim. What worked, what didn't work, who fell asleep, did you fall asleep? Did somebody get upset? Like, what happened in the past Sedarim? And this desire for it to be better, but also this extra luggage of all of these old stories. So what I like to do, and you don't have to do this, but you can even do this in your mind, or if you can write it down, it's great. Go ahead and write down all your expectations of the Seder. Just write it down. Write them down. What are your, things that you're nervous about, worried about with the Seder? Are you worried about a kid who's going to act up? What are you worried about? Put it down, put it down, put it down. Okay, and now we're going to really put it down. We're going to do a cleansing. And that means that you take all of those worries, things you're worried about, and you just put a big heart around them, a bubble of love, a bubble of compassion. Or if you'd like, and you have a pen, you could just dot your words, sprinkle a mist of compassion on it. Okay? Things happen in past Sederim or past years or in your childhood or who knows what or when. And they really did happen. So they get compassion. And now that you've given them compassion, you can let those worries and fears know that it is a new year and you are a new person. That's right. You're entirely new. And we're going to count all the ways that you're new coming up. But you are literally a new person and it's a new year. So many things have happened. During this year, you have done so much healing. You have gone to therapy. You have helped your children. You have helped yourself. Maybe you learned a new skill. Maybe you got a new job. Who knows? But you certainly lived through these past months with the Jewish people and Eretz Yisrael and the way that our hearts have opened since October 7th. You're a new person and there is a new opportunity and a new light in the world. So to all those old worries, no, they don't need to be here. They're not even relevant because we're always creating our life with our thoughts. So let's create something beautiful. Think in your mind of a good expectation, something that you would like to vibrate with at this Seder. Our Seder will be full of peace and joy. Our Seder will be just right, whatever it is, and I will feel in my heart that it's just right, whatever it is. Let's get some good, juicy thoughts going. You know that the Shekhinah, the divine presence, is there at the Seder table. The divine presence comes down to us closer and closer by Ne'ilah, that's on Yom Kippur, by the blowing of the shofar, Shavuos night, during intimacy, physical intimacy, and Seder night. Okay, so we are in a serious experience over here where just the light and the presence is possible and is there. So let's think of some good words. My Seder will be incredible. And let's also think of what are some things that you can do in order to make this Seder better. Like, what have you learned from your last Sederim about yourself or your family so that you can do things a little bit differently this year? So I was giving a class to a group of beautiful women, and one of them said that she's going to get herself a new Haggadah because she realizes that the Seder is very long and she gets tired and she just loses track. She's going to buy herself a Haggadah. Another one is being proactive in figuring out what to do with a specific child. This child is I don't know what they are. She's nervous. They're rough to deal with for her. So she wants it to be pleasant. She actually made a commitment to be in full acceptance of anything that happens with him on this Seder night. That's how she's going to walk in. I myself have something that I have to do to plan in advance. And it's by the Manish Tana, I always make some kind of little performance. And sometimes I get stage fright. And this time I'm like, you know what? I'm preparing in advance. And I'm just going to prepare in advance. It's my own preparation because I know I found that when I was doing this work with the women, I was like, oh, that's where my stomach clenches. I don't like that moment. So let me change it this year. Let me prepare a few days in advance and just do something differently. Okay, and this is really fun. You know, a lot of times we make commitments to ourselves and don't necessarily keep it. And we don't realize that when we make a commitment, or I should say like a decision with ourselves, when we make a decision with ourselves, we really need to keep it. It matters. It matters to our psyche. It matters to our equilibrium, to our sense of self-worth. Can we trust ourselves to do what's in our best interest? And on some level, I feel like it matters in a more cosmic way. Like you said you would do something or you're putting out an intention, so do it. It matters. Like you said it there. It's, the malachim, they go ahead of you. When you are ready to do a mitzvah, then God sends the angels. They're ready there to support you in your mitzvah. So go ahead and do it. So the reason why I'm telling you this is because if you have an idea while I'm talking of something you want to do for the Seder, something that has bothered you or something that's just wonderful, maybe you want a new coat, maybe you want to buy someone a present, maybe you always sit across from your husband wishing that you bought him a present, go ahead and do it. Do it ahead of time. We've got a couple days left, or even something small. Maybe you want to spend 5 minutes doing some writing before the Seder. Do it. Okay. And it literally is a gift to your psyche, because these things that we decide that we're going to do, they don't naturally fit into our life. Naturally, the things that are more pressing will fit into our life, the laundry, the dishes, the job, etc. But these are things that matter. They add heart and soul to everything else that we do. Okay, so I hope you thought of something that you want to do this year that will just make your Seder sweeter and more, I'm going to say more manageable, but hey, it's a Seder. It's awesome in its mystery. You never know how it's going to come out. You show up to the experience. So yeah, go ahead and do something. All right, so that is Urchatz. And I hope that you're with me in stepping into something brand new. And now I want to look at Karpas. Karpas is so interesting. Karpas, as I learned from Rabbi Milevsky Levashon, is the idea of an appetizer, something to whet your appetite. So we just eat this little tiny vegetable, and then we dip it in salt water, and it physically whets our appetite. I don't know if you had this experience, but you eat one little piece of karpas and suddenly that potato or that celery or whatever you eat at home is just so delicious, more delicious than it is the entire year. You just really want another bite. Why? It's potatoes and salt water, celery and salt water, because it whet your appetite. It did the job. It got you wanting more. So the idea is that karpas represents a question. A question whets the appetite. And that's why we ask a question about karpas. It makes us wonder, why are we dipping a vegetable into salt water? And that opens up the questions of, why is this night different than any other night? So it leads us right into Magid, where we're going to tell the story of the Haggadah, right? So our Karpas exercise today is to really ask, how is this night different than any other night? It is so important to take stock. What is different in your life right now than last Pesach? Where are you holding spiritually, emotionally, physically now, in contrast to last Pesach? What is tangibly, physically different in your life or in your family's life since last Pesach? And you know what? Hashem, God, is always working with us every second, making a beautiful plan. I like to think of it like a moving sidewalk. This is just in my brain. That you know how a moving sidewalk in an airport, you just stand on it and it moves forward. And if you just stand there, it's going to move. So I call life a moving sidewalk. You just live and Hashem is moving things. Now we also have free choice. So I call that running. Did you ever run or walk really fast on a moving sidewalk? It's amazing. You feel like you're gliding. You feel so cool, so fast. You're just gliding along. When you make good choices, that's you gliding along with the plan and you move forward and it moves faster. Sometimes if you make a bad choice, it's like walking backwards. Well, the sidewalk is still going to move. Hashem is still going to get you where you got to go, but you're moving against the sidewalk, right? So Hashem is always moving us forward. Hashem always has a beautiful plan in mind for us. What is the beautiful plan that has occurred for you this year? Now, I know that there have been hard things that happened, because hard things are also part of life and they're also part of the plan. They're the hard part of the plan. But really take stock. And when you take stock, it's important to give honor to yourself and to see all the ways that you have showed up for these changes. They're happening, but you're also happening. You're changing with them. You're adjusting. You're resilient. You're working with what's handed to you. And to give honor to Hashem, if you can see the ways that He has moved things far beyond what you thought is possible. Wow, it's incredible. So our Karpas, our question, why is this night different than all other nights, which is actually right after Karpas, but yes, still opening with questions, leads us to a deep recognition of all that has changed in our life. And that's fantastic because this night is different than all the other nights in your life. And when you say the bracha, "Shehecheyanu v'kiyimanu v'higiyanu lasman hazeh," God, that you kept me alive and you sustained me until this day, so that I would reach this day. Let's say that bracha, that blessing, with a full heart, like knowing what this day is, at least as much as we could know, really recognizing it's pretty awesome. Okay. Now, we have another question. And this question is, again, why is this night different from all the other nights? And you know that in this night, we do a couple of things that are really interesting. Sometimes we have a Sudas Hoda'ah, that is a festive meal of thanks. And sometimes we have a mourner's meal, right? And these are kind of like two opposites. But on the Seder night, we do both. We have the matzah and we have the maror. As a matter of fact, yeah, we even eat them together. So let's look at that as well. Let's look at the question of Hashem. Why is my life this way? What can you tell me about my life? Now I've just taken stock of all the changes. I've seen the incredible things. I've seen the hard things. That's the matzah and the maror. And now together, a question, put it all together. And I have a question. What is my life about, Hashem? What can you explain to me about my life? Now, the truth is that we live in the world. The world is called the olam, which is from the word ne'alam, which means hidden. So we are in the hidden world. And actually, we get schar, we get merit because we are working our work in this world and we don't even understand the full picture of this world. Could you imagine how dear we are to Hashem? Every day we get up and we try our hardest to be the best people we can be, to meet and greet every test that comes our way, to rise to the challenge, to be as kind as we can be, no matter what the circumstance. And all this is happening while we don't even know the fullness of the picture why. We're going to know when we're not in this world, but in this world, we just get tested and we have to work in the dark. And what happens is that in the dark, we are the light. And when we are the light in the dark, when we are the light and we don't scream at someone, we are the light and we don't lash out, we are the light and we fight our inner envy, we are the light and we have more faith. When we are the light in the dark, we become more godly. And that God presence within us radiates out into the world and we fix this world, our inner world and the outer world at the same time. But it's incredible to think about. Just wow. Like we're working so industriously, so devotedly, with such dedication to Hashem every single day. We don't even know the big picture. I mean, that is just incredible. So we're asking the question, what is this life about? Still knowing that we don't have the answer. However, the question itself is so precious because when we know that Hashem is here and in it with us, then we know that we can ask him anything. And so we can listen in for a hint of an answer or for words of comfort or for something that resonates as true for us. What is my life about? Or what has this all been about? Don't be scared to ask. Just the asking puts us into connection with the divine. If any beautiful words come to you, write them down. Here, check it out. This is my phone. I have some beautiful words there in here. I just keep them in with me. They're words that matter to me. Words have vibrations. Words that are reminders. So, yeah, go for it. Write it down and keep it with you. It's very, very special. Okay. So I'm looking down at my notes over here, just a few notes, which I can't really read my handwriting, but we're going to keep going anyway. what I wanted to share with you is actually a little tip as you're sitting at the Seder. And we know that the Seder is very long. And we know that it says, Imani kan hakol kan. If I am here, then everything is here. When we want to have the most powerful experience, we want to be as present as possible. And I've heard a lot of people say this, and I'm sure I've said it myself. I want to be present to an experience. And what I want to share with you, especially around a holiday season, which is for the Seder and beyond the Seder, is a tip on being present, because uh, the present is where it's at. Not in the past, it's all done. Not in the future, it didn't happen, but right there in the present. How do we stay there? So this is a tip. And the tip is to actually mentally and energetically ground yourself. And what that looks like is this: you have a spine, and at the bottom of your spine is the sacrum. And you can mentally bring your energy down to the sacrum and imagine that it's connected to the earth, really, really connected, thus the word grounded. So just grounding mentally. Sometimes people like to make sure that their feet are flat on the floor, and I have done that, and it's wonderful. But when I learned about energetic grounding, focusing on that spinal column, and it helped me so much, and I found that I could get grounded even when I wasn't sitting still, which I loved. And you can also know, although I wouldn't go there, know that your head is attached to the divine. It's like Jacob's ladder, Yaakov's ladder, Sulam Mutzav Arza, which means that the feet were standing on the ground, and its head was in the heavens. So sometimes when we want to have a spiritual experience, we think, I need to stay in my head in the heavens and thinking and kavanos and all this and intentions, and you're kind of heady. But the truth is that when you do that, you can kind of float away and get distracted, or not be present for the people who love you, or just not be energetically where you need to be. However, if you ground in your body, what you actually do is you make more space for your divine presence, for your energetic presence to live within you, and more of you is here. I have been experimenting with this, and it is uncanny how when a person is grounded, when I'm grounded mentally, energetically, no matter what I'm doing, I could be walking around doing dishes. When I'm grounded, my presence is so much stronger and everybody feels it. Sometimes kids come up to me for a conversation and I'm like amazed, but they can feel she's here. Or I have better interactions, more positive interactions. Um, Things just go better. I can't explain it, but this groundedness, this presencing within your body is so beautiful. And why I'm taking the time to explain it to you is because I had this idea about mindfulness, that it was in your mind. And I would be able to go to a very mindful place in a meditative space, but that space is not where I need to be at the Seder table with my family. I need to be right here. And it's just so beautiful to fill up on the gift of the moment by being energetically present. So that's a fun thing for you to experiment with. And if at any point of the Seder you feel that you are getting sad, bored, irritated, tired, just try this as an energetic tip. I'm sure you could think some beautiful things, but what I'm adding today is also your body. When you get your body on board that it wants to be here, it's really, really beautiful. And you will see that you can actually wake yourself up, have a stronger presence, like I said, because more of you is here. It's amazing. Okay. So we are going to head into Magid, and then after that, we're going to do a chunk that's going to lead us to the end. So Magid is where we tell the story of our Mitzrayim experience. And then we even tell the story about people who are telling the story about a Mitzrayim experience. It's really, really rich. And what I want to share with you is something that I've shared very, very often, and I will continue to share it, God willing, because it's so profound. So when we look at transformation, what we're really looking at is redemption, something that was bitter turns sweet. Me'afela liora, from darkness to light. Mishibud legeula, from captivity to release, to redemption, right? We have these contrasts. So what I have learned is that in our life, the experience of transformation, change, revelation, redemption actually has 5 steps to it. And these are 5 steps that help me a lot to understand. So in the story of Magid, if you want to do some writing, you can tell yourself the steps of your personal redemption. And it's so amazing. But if not, if you don't want to do the writing, I'll just share it with you now and we'll just do it together. Okay. So 5 steps. Here's my 5. Here's my hand. We have victim, awareness, experience, transcendence, redemption. And this could be a whole class, but we're going to do it rather quickly. Okay, victim. Victim is when we're in Mitzrayim. Victim is that time in your life where everything fell apart. Shviras hakelim, which means the shattering of vessels. Kabbalah teaches us that there are points in our life when God shatters our vessel in order to create a new vessel that is worthy and ready and able to hold more light. But the shattering of vessels is incredibly painful. And in the place where I call it victim or Mitzrayim, in that place, there is an experience of complete bewilderment. You don't get it. How could you get it? You don't yet have the new vessel to be able to get it. You don't understand what's happening. You don't understand why it happened. It feels bigger than you, larger than life. And most importantly, it feels like something that no one on the planet could understand. Even if you know technically that they went through the same thing, the pain that we experience with the Shviras HaKelim, with the victim place, is so profound. And I believe that it's on purpose, that we can only call on Hashem in that place. He's the only one. Sometimes we cry to him. Sometimes we don't understand him. Sometimes we don't have good feelings towards him. But at the end of the day, it is you and Hashem. And that's all that happens. And we can liken this to a seed that's been planted in the ground and it decomposes. Now, you and I both know that a seed needs to go in the ground, right? It's got to decompose. Even if it goes into water, it has to decompose in order to become anything else. But when you are going through that experience, it is profoundly painful. And we know that Hashem is close to the brokenhearted. So ironically, in the place where it feels that Hashem is the farthest, Hashem is the closest. He's going to get you through it. And he did get you through it. We go through this cycle many times in our life, but sometimes we go through it in a very massive way, a massive test. Okay, so you might want to think of that massive encounter that you had, or just anytime. Even a trigger, by the way, goes through these steps. Okay, so a trigger would be, that somebody really embarrassed you, or you got into a fight, or you just got plain old triggered. That would be that victim place, that place of bewilderment. You don't have your senses with you. You're not all together in that moment. What happens next? How do we get out of this place? Next comes awareness. And for me, this is the time of the Makos, when the Jewish people was still in Egypt, but they were coming to awareness that they were not meant to be in Egypt. Hashem sent the plagues, and Hashem showed us, listen, you're different. You're not the Egyptians. Listen, I am Hashem, and I'm in charge of everything, and I care about you. So there's this awareness. We're not out of Egypt, but we're aware. And in our lives, what does that look like? That looks like we are not out of our difficult space, but at least we are aware that we are in a difficult space. We begin to get some feeling of not really relief, but maybe like a little bit of awareness that we don't want to be hurting so bad. Sometimes people take themselves to therapy or finally get some type of help when they're in awareness. Maybe they ask for help. Maybe they need help with a job. Maybe they need help with an addiction. It's not that they're free of the addiction, but they have awareness. I call it when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. So it's very profound to have awareness. It's very fragile. It's like that little seed just came out of the ground. Hello, I'm a little seed. I'm just poking my head up. It can get trampled in any minute. And that's why when you're in awareness, you want to be very, very gentle with yourself, full of compassion for what you went through. This is not the time to say, I'm sure there was a good reason. It's not that time. Not yet. It's okay. You're just hurting and you're a human being and you're trying to make sense of things and you're doing what you need to do and good for you. Now, if you get help in awareness, if you do get resources, then guess what happens? You get to experience something new. You get to experience change. You're finally growing into this, sapling that you're meant to grow into. And you're still fragile. You need those, how you see those trees. I never used to know what these were. They have bandages around them. And then sometimes they're propped up by two sticks. These are the young trees. They need a lot of loving care. Oh my goodness. And so you are still a young tree, but you are a tree nonetheless. And this is when you reach the level of experience. I love the level of experience. In this level, we are intensely vulnerable. However, we are doing it. We are making efforts. You are applying for jobs or going to anonymous meetings or losing the weight or cleaning your house step by step. You're doing it. And the thing about doing it is that you feel great. When people are in victimhood, it's hard for other people to relate to them besides to give compassion because they are literally in a defined bubble. But when you're in experience, you finally feel like being part of the world because you are in the world doing things, you're achieving, and you are proud of yourself, and there's momentum. You can finally see something that's happened. You are most definitely not in the ground anymore. You're in a new place, and that is just amazing. So whoever is listening to this, if you are in a level of experience, if you are making changes in your life, maybe you started to make dinners all the time, yay for you. Maybe you are taking better care of yourself, yay for you. Maybe you started learning Emunah B'tachon, yay for you. You're doing it. This is just, it's such an exciting place. It's like when you use your bechira, the more you use your bechira, by the way, you use your free choice, the better you feel. That's the rule in this world. So boom, you're feeling amazing. And it needs a lot of support. I love to coach people during awareness and experience. I tell my coaching students that like some early awareness is really for therapy, and that's the zone for that type of traumatic experience or unraveling of the story, unwinding of the story. But coming into experience, really making a lot of active changes in your life. I'm sure that's good for therapy also, but wow, this is such the realm for coaching, to take someone by the hand and cheer for them and root for them as they climb up their personal mountain. It's so, so exciting to see the best in them, to help them find meaning, that they won't fall down. It's just so exciting to see them access their power. And so experience is awesome. What comes next? You might wonder. Well, next is transcendence. By the way, I don't know if you're wondering, but I love this model so much that each time I say it, I'm excited all over again. And I'm wondering, like, wow, what could come after experience? Somebody just lost 100 pounds. Like, what happens next? Well, what happens next is transcendence. You transcend your story. You are a fully grown tree. You finally realize that all this happened for a reason. You can trace back your story. You can thank Hashem. You can see purpose for what you experienced. And you can have gifts to give that you wouldn't have had otherwise. For example, maybe you're going to meet someone who went through exactly what you went through, and you're the one to give compassion to them. Maybe you now have a package full of resources that you never would have had if you didn't have this kid go through this experience, or this medical story that you just had to deal with. You have so much to offer. And that offering feels so good. It's so purposeful, so godly. And you start to make peace with the story. You transcend the story. You are more than your story. You are all that you are today. And it's just amazing to speak to people in transcendence. They say 100% of the time, if I wasn't where I was then, I wouldn't be who I am now. Why does everybody say the same line in every language? Because it's the truth. We have to go through that Mitzrayim in order to come out the other side. We have to go through the exile. We're going through it, but we're going to come out on the other side, and we're going to see, yes, it was purposeful. Wow. Okay, so think for yourself, what are you able to give now that you wouldn't be able to give if you didn't go through your whole story? A lot. a really, really lot. And this includes childhood stories. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. All right. What could possibly be better than that? Better than that is redemption. Redemption is when you get to the other side, which means you get to see it's not just that I fell and I got up. It's not just that I had a terrible story and I'm in recovery. It's that I was made for this. I was born for this. It's who I always was. It's not something that happened on the way to interrupt my life. It is my life. Hashem made me for a purpose. And the only way that I can accomplish this purpose is to endure certain stories. And this is when the tree grows fruit, literally fruit. It can feed people. And these fruits have seeds that can make more fruits and more fruits and more fruits because it's an eternal gift. You are an eternal gift. And you can come to this recognition. And it's a big leap from transcendence to redemption is a big leap because it's hard to let go of this story. But I believe that every Pesach, we have this extra special possibility of stepping into redemption, which means to knowing who we are, to understanding how much Hashem loves us, to being in our own magnificence. This is who you made me to be, Hashem. It's not an accident that I had those children or that husband or that wife. It's not an accident. It's part of the story of who I'm supposed to be. And if you can see yourself like that, then what happens is that you can thank Hashem for your life and you can like yourself and love yourself and be yourself because you are not your story. You are all the radiance and beauty in the world that can only come through you. And there was never anyone like you since the beginning of time, nor will there be anyone like you till the end of time, says the Arizal. So here you are in your redemption, which means really looking yourself in the eye and seeing, whoa, I am a fruit tree with incredible fruits to give. This is what I was born for. None of it is by accident. And the parts that still feel bitter, we ate them right before we tasted them, the bitter herbs and the matzah, and ultimately we are free. And what is so amazing is that the Passover Seder, the Karpas Pesach, was only allowed to be eaten, that's the Pesach sacrifice, was only allowed to be eaten with a chabura, which means with a community. You could not do this alone. Nope, you can't do the Seder alone, the Karpas Pesach alone, and you can't do redemption alone. You cannot. Who you are is beyond the sum total of your experiences, but it's also beyond you. It's all the people that gave to you, that impressed themselves upon you, that were kind to you, and even those that hurt you. It's a whole chabura that it took. It takes a village. It certainly takes a village. It takes a whole world to support each and every one of us. So it is time to celebrate our redemption on Pesach night when Hashem took us out of Egypt. And this is Hashem takes us out of our own Mitzrayim of thinking anything small, constricted about ourselves, that we know that we are his beloved nation. All right. So that is our Magid, telling ourselves the story of our own redemption. And this can happen even while you're sitting there, just reveling in the story of redemption and reveling in Magid. Your mind can also go into these beautiful places and take note and thank Hashem for all that you have been through and where he has brought you to today. Okay, coming up, we have the end of Magid and then the end of our class. So we're going to talk about Dayenu. Dayenu is a song that we sing where we recount all of the kindnesses that Hashem did for us as he led us out of Egypt. First from the plagues, and then, feeding us in the desert, and then all the way to Har Sinai, where we got the Torah. And we recount each and every one of these things. And after each one, we say, Dayenu, it would have been enough. And that means that each one of these kindnesses is so huge and so big, it would have been enough. And it reminds me of this story that I read. You can look it up online. It's so easy. I just found it a long time ago. It's this man who went through a serious illness, and he told his family, I don't want us to just thank Hashem at the end of it. Every time something good happens, we get a positive result. Let us thank Hashem and say Nishmas, which is a very special prayer of thanks. So, end of praise. So this man's family did exactly that. When he would get a good blood test, they would sing Nishmas. When he would get a doctor's appointment, yay, you know how hard it is to get a doctor's appointment sometimes? Let's thank Hashem and say Nishmas. And what was so amazing is that this man and his family had what they called Nishmas moments. And that was a choice, because they could have had a completely different experience of blood tests, and now I have to go to the doctor, and now we have the fear of the result, and now we have to go back to the hospital, and now we have to get treatment, and everything is just so, down and so hard and so frightening and so scary. And instead, this man changed it around so that his whole experience was one of nishmas moments. And when I read that, it really stuck with me, because I thought, how amazing to live our lives like that, from one moment to the next, celebrating the good and what is working out instead of highlighting what we think isn't working out. So the invitation here is for you to sing or write your own Dayenu, your own epic song of thanks to Hashem. Now, if you're not writing, then it's okay. You can go through this in your mind, no pressure, or you can write it later. It could be just a poem. I've noticed that a lot of women write some beautiful poetry and they don't share it with anyone, but they could. You totally could. You could send it to me on my website. Oh my gosh, I would love it. Or just keep it as a treasure for yourself. But there's beautiful words that want to come out. That's all that I'm pointing at. And it is so, so, so amazing to take the time to write your own Dayenu song. Okay, wrapping up now, we're going to Shulchan Orech, which is where we eat. And when you eat at the Seder, I hope that you enjoy every bite. It's a funny thing because we're not so hungry, So it's almost like, when it feels better to tell someone, I want to see you, rather than, oh, I need to visit you because I'm in your town, right? You really want to know that somebody wants to see you. So I think of Shulchan Orech like that. We already ate the matzah, we already ate the maror, our stomachs are very full. But here comes this meal, and we eat it because we want to eat it, not because we're starving. We literally want to eat it. We are ingesting the idea of freedom. We're not like starving poor people who need a nibble of matzah. We are abundant, royal people who are eating an abundant meal on a full tummy. How beautiful. And the idea in Shulchan Orech is simply to revel in the tastes and the hard work that you put in, and in the delicious flavors that maybe you don't usually taste. But even if it's just a chicken soup or fish, whatever it is that you eat, I hope that you are able to eat it with joy. Okay, coming up, we have the end of the Seder, where we sing Chasal Siddur Pesach, which is our little love song to Hashem, that we're affirming and stating that we have finished the Seder according to all the halachos. And let me just think through the words. Yeah, we're basically telling Hashem, we did it, and we hope that it is wonderful to you. We tried our absolute best to do everything according to how you wanted it. So I love this so much, because we don't often do this. I remember once when I was at a retreat, and I may have told you this story before because it was so profound for me. We were finishing up the circle. So everybody in the circle said their closing remarks, and I was the leader. So somebody turned to me and they said, what's your closing remarks? What do you want to say? And I felt very courageous and vulnerable at the same time. And I said, good job, Rivka, Malka. That's all. And I laughed and laughed, because who says good job to themselves? Almost no one ever. But I was just gonna finish my retreat and just be done. Like, okay, good job. Like, I wouldn't even say good job. I would say, wow, the women had an amazing time. Everything worked out. I'm so happy. Baruch Hashem. Thank you, Hashem. But to just literally say, good job, Rivka Malka, that was such a Kiddush to me. It was so new. So I love that we end the Seder this way with the affirmation of good job. Like we did 100% our best, and it's so beautiful. Okay, everyone. I just want to wish you a wonderful Pesach. It's been a pleasure spending some time over here with you. I'll be thinking of you as I head into my Seder, doing some grounding and some gratitude breaths. Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, everyone. Bye.